The Sound of Music 1965 is one of Hollywood's most beloved films, known for its sweeping landscapes, memorable songs, and heartwarming story of a governess who transforms a strict widower's home into a lively, musical sanctuary. However, beneath its picture-perfect surface, there are certain themes, moments, and character dynamics that are often overlooked or rarely discussed. The relationship between Maria and Captain Von Trapp, one of the more subtle and less discussed aspects of the film, is the relationship between Maria, the young and energetic governess, and Captain Georg von Trapp, a stern naval captain. The age gap between the two, which in real life was around 25 years, could have been seen as problematic in today's context. In the film, their romance unfolds naturally, with Maria becoming a figure of change in the family's life. But there is a certain romanticization of an older man falling in love with a much younger woman. This relationship dynamic, while charming to many, is seldom critically examined, especially considering the growing awareness of the importance of mutual respect and equality in relationships today. The dangers of blind obedience to authority. The Sound of Music is set against the backdrop of the Nazi occupation of Austria, and though the film portrays Captain Von Trapp's defiance against the Nazi regime, the film downplays the reality of his personal history with the military. There's an implicit condemnation of the Nazi soldiers that appears to be more of a background context than a subject of direct criticism in the film. In fact, the dangers of unquestioning loyalty to authority figures are never fully explored, something that would likely have a more critical lens in modern interpretations. Captain Von Trapp's rejection of the Nazi regime is framed as noble, but the issue of how people in the family or society may have been complicit in such regimes is scarcely addressed. The idealization of the family dynamic. At its core, The Sound of Music depicts the idealized vision of a perfect family, one where music, joy, and love solve all problems. While this offers an uplifting and heartwarming narrative, it can be criticized for presenting an unrealistic standard. In the film, Maria's arrival transforms the Von Trapp family from cold and disciplined to warm and unified. But this portrayal glosses over the complexities of real-life familial relationships, especially in the context of grief, trauma, and the societal expectations of the TMA. The risk of over-sentimentality. The film is undeniably sentimental, with scenes that depict love, family, and hope in an almost flawless manner. While this resonates emotionally with viewers, it also runs the risk of overlooking the darker, more challenging aspects of the characters' lives and their historical context. The absence of a more nuanced, realistic portrayal of the family's struggles, particularly the tension between individual desires and societal duties, has led many to view the film as overly simplistic and sometimes naive in its portrayal of family life. While The Sound of Music is primarily a family-oriented musical, it is undeniably set in a period of immense historical upheaval. The Nazi occupation of Austria serves as the backdrop for the Von Trapp family's story. Captain Von Trapp's resistance against the Nazis becomes one of the film's most powerful moments. Yet, the film does not deeply explore the complexities of living under such a regime, focusing instead on the escape of the Von Trapp family to the safety of Switzerland. The historical context is often relegated to the background, giving viewers a somewhat simplified view of the era. The stark realities of war, the personal cost of defying an authoritarian regime, and the heavy toll it took on families are not explored in the way they might be in more modern films set during times of conflict. It's not that the movie outright avoids the war. The infamous scene where the Von Trapps sing their way across the mountains is a moment of liberation, both figurative and literal. But there's a certain gloss over the emotional and psychological scars that such a time would have left on the characters. The dangers of living under such oppressive rule are felt more as plot points than the profound struggles of real people. In addition, The film's portrayal of the Nazi soldiers is extremely sanitized. The film focuses on Captain von Trapp's rejection of their presence, but the motivations behind the soldiers' loyalty to the regime are not interrogated. The film does not delve into how ordinary people were seduced by Nazi propaganda, or how it was possible for so many to turn a blind eye to the horrors unfolding across Europe. For a modern audience, this lack of depth can feel like a missed opportunity to explore the nuances of how individuals become complicit in such regimes, whether through fear, ignorance, or choice. The role of women in The Sound of Music. Another aspect of the film that is often overlooked is the role of women, especially in terms of the depiction of Maria's character. On one hand, Maria is a figure of liberation for the Von Trapp children, bringing life and music to their otherwise stern, militaristic upbringing. She also serves as the catalyst for transforming Captain Von Trapp, softening his stern exterior. Yet, while Maria is presented as a strong and independent woman, the circumstances of her role and her eventual romantic entanglement with Captain Von Trapp suggest a more traditional view of womanhood, one that emphasizes domesticity and motherhood above all else. Maria's initial reluctance to settle into the confines of domestic life is evident at the beginning of the film, as she feels stifled by the Abbey's strict rules. However, by the end of the film, she embraces this life completely, marrying the captain and assuming the role of mother to his 7 children. Her transformation is treated as a positive development, and the implication is that this domestic role is her ultimate fulfillment. In an era where feminism and the fight for women's rights were gaining momentum, the film's treatment of Maria's character can be seen as somewhat outdated, even though it is not overtly negative. The emphasis on family and motherhood as a woman's primary purpose in life feels somewhat antiquated when viewed through a modern lens, particularly in contrast to today's evolving understanding of gender roles. Maria's character arc, in a sense, reinforces the notion that a woman's role in society, particularly during the 1,940 seconds and 1,950 seconds, should center around the home. Despite her rebellious spirit and her free-spirited personality, her eventual return to the domestic sphere suggests that the film aligns itself with a conservative vision of women's roles. Though her emotional journey is deeply satisfying for many viewers, this trajectory overlooks the broader feminist conversation about women's rights and independence that was bubbling beneath the surface at the TMA. The idealization of family life. The Sound of Music is not just about love and music, but about family. The transformation of Captain Von Trapp's home from a place of rigidity to one of warmth and joy is central to the story. The children, initially distant and fearful of their father, are brought together by Maria's kindness, music, and nurturing personality. Her influence ultimately unites the family, giving them a sense of purpose and love that they had previously lacked. However, this idealized vision of family can be critiqued for offering a version of family life that is unrealistically perfect. The family dynamic is portrayed as one where music and love heal all wounds, and where an outsider, in this case, Maria, can come in and completely alter the trajectory of a family's life. The film suggests that the solution to familial disharmony is not complicated therapy or deeper understanding, but rather the infusion of happiness and joy through music and love. While this message is uplifting, it lacks the complexity and realism found in real-life family struggles, where problems often run deeper than external forces and require more than just a change of attitude or a new member joining the family. The portrayal of the Von Trapp children's transformation is also somewhat sanitized. While they may initially be distant from their father, they are quick to accept Maria as a mother figure, and they bond over their shared love of singing. This quick resolution of conflict overlooks the reality that many children in real-life dysfunctional families struggle with accepting new parental figures or dealing with the trauma caused by a strict or absent father. The ease with which the children accept Maria's love and authority might seem unrealistic to some viewers, especially when considering the long-lasting effects of parental loss, emotional neglect, or abuse. The absence of real consequences. The film, at its core, is a fairy tale. The Von Trapp family escapes the Nazis, finds love, and lives happily ever after. While this conclusion provides a satisfying resolution, it lacks the real consequences that often accompany such life-altering decisions. The family's flight across the mountains, while exhilarating, doesn't explore the severe consequences that families in such situations would have faced. The portrayal of the escape as a romantic and almost idyllic adventure neglects the real danger and fear that people like the Von Trapps would have faced in the real world. In conclusion, while The Sound of Music remains one of the most enduring and beloved films of all time, it is not without its flaws. The film glosses over some of the more complicated and darker aspects of its historical and emotional backdrop, opting instead for a more sanitized and idealized portrayal of family life, love, and personal transformation. This oversimplification of complex issues has led to critiques of the film, particularly in terms of its portrayal of women, the idealization of family, and the sanitization of the historical context. Despite this, The Sound of Music continues to resonate with audiences worldwide, offering a vision of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of love and music. As much as The Sound of Music glorifies the ideals of family, music, and escape, it subtly frames sacrifice as one of the central themes of the story. Maria's willingness to leave the convent and her own aspirations behind in favor of serving Captain Von Trapp and his family speaks to a long-standing societal view that women must sacrifice personal ambition for the good of others, particularly in the context of family life. While this sacrifice is framed as a noble act, it carries with it a deeply ingrained message that may be uncomfortable for modern audiences to fully embrace. Maria's decision to give up her personal freedom and join the Von Trapp family ultimately brings about positive change. She unites the family, helps the children rediscover their joy, and even brings love back into Captain Von Trapp's life. Yet, as the story progresses, there is an unspoken cost to her personal fulfillment. Her own dreams and desires are deferred, with her becoming, in essence, a caretaker for the Von Trapp children and an anchor in the domestic life of the family. This image of a woman who is lauded for her selflessness and sacrifice may have been an accepted and admired narrative in 1965, but today it raises questions about the impact of such expectations on women and whether self-sacrifice should be a universal measure of fulfillment. In addition, Captain Von Trapp's own sacrifices, his resignation from the Navy, and his defiance of Nazi rule are also framed as heroic. However, this heroism is somewhat simplified. The impact of his decision to defy the Nazis is only brushed upon, with the family's escape acting as a romanticized act of rebellion. The real emotional and psychological cost of choosing to flee, leaving behind their country, career, and everything they had known, is not explored deeply. These sacrifices, much like Maria's, are treated as noble and necessary, but in the film's fairy tale resolution, the true weight of the choices made by the characters is diluted. The simplification of trauma and resistance. The escape of the Von Trapp family is one of the most iconic scenes in film history. The family, after all the turmoil and tension, bravely walks across the mountains to freedom. The moment is charged with hope and redemption, suggesting that through music, love, and unity, the family can overcome any obstacle. While this provides an emotionally satisfying conclusion, it also oversimplifies the immense psychological and physical toll that such a journey would have taken in reality. In a more realistic or modern interpretation of the story, the psychological and emotional toll of living under Nazi occupation and the physical dangers involved in escaping to Switzerland would be explored in far greater depth. The film, however, chooses to portray the Von Trapp family's escape as an act of defiance that is filled with a sense of triumph, but it fails to interrogate the real trauma and fear that would have come with their experience. The mental toll of having to leave behind everything they knew, the uncertainty of their future, and the emotional strain of being separated from their homeland are all aspects that are glossed over in favor of a victorious escape story. Similarly, the issue of resistance against the Nazi regime, while portrayed as courageous and righteous in the film, is not fully examined. The consequences of resistance, the punishment, the loss of loved ones, and the personal guilt that some might have felt are not shown in any detail. Instead, the film presents Captain Von Trapp as a heroic figure, whose act of defiance is romanticized. The reality of what it meant for individuals to take such a stand is far more complex, and would have likely included deep internal struggles, which the film does not explore. Reinforcement of class and authority. Another subtle yet significant aspect of The Sound of Music is its reinforcement of class structures and authority. Captain Von Trapp, as a wealthy and authoritative figure, holds a powerful position in society. His wealth and status are central to the story, particularly in his relationship with Maria. While Maria challenges the captain's strictness and teaches the children a more joyful, carefree way of life, the class divide between her and the Von Trapp family is never fully explored. She is, after all, hired to be a governess, a role that comes with a level of authority over the children, but also places her in a subordinate position in the household. This dynamic is more apparent when Maria falls in love with Captain Von Trapp, who is clearly the head of the household. Though Maria's influence changes the family's dynamics, it does not challenge the fundamental structure of power within the household. The captain's eventual transformation from a rigid, militaristic figure to a loving father and husband is significant, but it does not radically question the inherent authority he holds as the patriarch of the family. The film's resolution, in which Maria accepts her role as both a mother and wife, reinforces the traditional roles of women in the household, especially in relation to the male head of the family. The depiction of Maria's work as a governess also fails to deeply explore the class distinction and power dynamics that are inherent in her role. While she is portrayed as a free spirit who brings joy and music to the Von Trapp children, her role is still defined by a hierarchical structure. She is employed by the family, and her authority is ultimately granted by Captain Von Trapp. The film does not delve into the complexities of domestic work or the inherent power imbalance between employers and employees. Instead, it presents a sanitized view where Maria, despite being in a subordinate position, ultimately becomes an integral part of the Von Trapp family. Idealization of escapism. The Sound of Music ultimately presents escapism as a solution to the challenges of life. The family's escape from Austria is framed as a triumphant act, offering them freedom and a new life. The mountains, symbolizing both physical and emotional liberation, serve as a visual metaphor for the family's escape from oppression. While this offers an uplifting message of hope, it also simplifies the complexities of dealing with trauma, conflict, and societal upheaval. The idea that escaping a challenging situation leads to an idyllic future is a comforting narrative, but it fails to acknowledge the long-term impact of trauma, loss, and upheaval. The family's escape may seem like a resolution, but the reality of starting over in a new country, adjusting to new lives, and coping with the emotional scars of war would have been much more complicated. The movie leaves the impression that once the family escapes, they will live happily ever after. But this ignores the psychological and emotional costs that such an escape entails. The escape, while symbolic of freedom, does not delve into the lasting effects of displacement and the challenges that many families who fled Nazi-occupied territories faced in the years following the war. Conclusion: The Sound of Music continues to be a beloved classic, cherished for its music, its portrayal of family values, and its message of love overcoming all obstacles. However, as with any film, a more nuanced examination reveals that beneath its idyllic portrayal of family life and historical escape, there are underlying complexities, contradictions, and themes that may be glossed over. These aspects, including the portrayal of sacrifice, the simplification of historical trauma, the reinforcement of class and authority, and the idealization of escapism, offer an opportunity for critical reflection on the ways in which the sound of music interacts with modern sensibilities and the evolving conversations about gender, power, and historical memory. In the end, the film's enduring appeal lies not just in its beauty and music, but in the way it touches on universal themes of love, family, and resilience. Yet, as we revisit the movie through a more contemporary lens, it challenges us to reconsider the broader implications of its messages and the ways in which cinema reflects the values of its TMA. The Sound of Music is more than just a feel-good story. It is a product of its era, shaped by the cultural and political context in which it was made, and it remains a testament to the power of music and family in the face of adversity. However, understanding its more complex layers allows us to appreciate it in a deeper, more critical way, keeping the magic alive while also acknowledging the shadows that linger beneath the surface. Despite the critiques and the more nuanced readings of The Sound of Music, the film's enduring popularity speaks to its powerful ability to evoke emotion, inspire, and offer a sense of hope. The music, of course, plays a central role in this. Songs like Do Re Mi, My Favorite Things, and Edelweiss have transcended the film itself, becoming part of the cultural lexicon. For many, the music is inseparable from the joy and warmth of the movie, and it continues to be performed and enjoyed by audiences worldwide. The emphasis on music as a transformative force is one of the film's most powerful messages. Mariah's ability to bring the Von Trapp children out of their shells through music is portrayed as nothing short of miraculous. It's a theme that resonates deeply with audiences, particularly in a world where music often serves as a form of expression, escape, and healing. Music in The Sound of Music is not just an art form. It's a tool for survival and connection, something that is still relevant in modern times. However, while the music is undeniably uplifting, the underlying message of optimism in the face of adversity has sparked mixed reactions in the years since the film's release. In a world that has become more aware of the emotional and psychological complexities of trauma, the film's idealized resolution, the Von Trapp family's escape to a new life, and their return to happiness can feel somewhat simplistic. The idea that a new beginning, facilitated by music and love, can erase the emotional scars of living through a war and a totalitarian regime can be both comforting and disillusioning, depending on the viewer's perspective. The feminist critique. Mariah's role. Maria's character, as portrayed by Julie Andrews, remains one of the most beloved and iconic figures in cinematic history. She is a free spirit, a woman who initially chafes against the strict rules of the Abbey and seeks freedom in the world. When she arrives at the Von Trapp household, she brings joy and lightness into a home steeped in rigid discipline. Maria's personality and her ability to transform the family are what make her so compelling. She is a symbol of hope and change, someone who shows that love and kindness can overcome the most difficult of circumstances. However, as mentioned earlier, Maria's arc can be seen as reinforcing traditional gender roles, particularly in the context of marriage and motherhood. By the end of the film, Maria's journey of self-discovery and rebellion culminates in her acceptance of domestic life with Captain Von Trapp. She becomes a mother figure to his children and a loving wife, which, while fulfilling for her character, also reinforces the idea that a woman's ultimate purpose is found in the domestic sphere. In modern feminist critiques, this can be seen as a somewhat limiting portrayal, one that reduces the complexity of a woman's role in society to motherhood and marriage. The film's treatment of Maria's character as the quintessential nurturer and caretaker, even in the face of her own desires and dreams, speaks to a cultural mindset that was prevalent in the 1,960 seconds. However, this mindset clashes with contemporary views on women's autonomy, their right to pursue careers and personal aspirations, and the importance of recognizing that a woman's identity is not solely defined by her role within the family. Historical romanticism and escapism. The film's romanticized portrayal of the Von Trapp family's escape to freedom is one of its most enduring aspects. The image of the family trekking across the Alps, with music filling the air as they flee the Nazi regime, is an iconic cinematic moment. It's a moment of triumph, both for the family and for the audience, and it encapsulates the film's overarching message of hope and resilience. However, the reality of such an escape, and the life the family would have faced afterward, is far more complicated than the film suggests. The challenges of fleeing a totalitarian regime and living as refugees are downplayed in the film, which focuses more on the family's unity and courage than on the actual hardships they faced. In the real world, refugees often face years of uncertainty, trauma, and isolation. The Von Trapp family's escape is depicted as a fairy tale resolution, which is not to say it isn't uplifting, but it is a highly idealized version of the refugee experience. In today's world, where issues of immigration, refugees, and asylum seekers are often at the forefront of political discourse, The Sound of Music's portrayal of escape from tyranny can be seen as oversimplified. The film does not engage with the long-term emotional and social consequences of being forced to leave one's home and start over in a foreign country. It presents the escape as a happy ending, but it neglects to address the ongoing challenges of exile, the struggle to build a new life in a foreign land, and the emotional toll that comes with such displacement. The historical inaccuracy and the real Von Trapp family. While The Sound of Music is based on the true story of the Von Trapp family, it takes significant liberties with the facts. For instance, the real-life Von Trapp family did not escape Austria in the dramatic fashion shown in the film. They did, in fact, flee the country in 1938, but it was not through the mountains. The family also did not have the same idyllic musical background portrayed in the movie. The children were not as musically inclined at the outset as they are shown to be in the film. Additionally, the character of Captain Von Trapp, played by Christopher Plummer, is depicted as a stern, distant figure who softens over the course of the film. In reality, the real Captain Von Trapp was reportedly a kind and loving father who was deeply devoted to his children. The portrayal of Chaim as emotionally cold and distant is a significant departure from the truth, and it plays into the film's larger narrative of transformation and redemption. This romanticized version of the Von Trapp family's story, while engaging for audiences, distorts the more complex and nuanced reality of their experiences. The film's departure from historical accuracy is not unique in Hollywood, as many films based on real-life events take creative liberties for dramatic effect. However, the gap between fact and fiction in The Sound of Music is particularly notable, given the film's status as a beloved cultural artifact. The film's version of events has become so ingrained in popular consciousness that it has overshadowed the real story of the Von Trapp family, which is, in many ways, just as fascinating and inspiring as the fictionalized account. Conclusion. The complex legacy of The Sound of Music. While The Sound of Music remains one of the most beloved and iconic films in cinematic history, its legacy is complex. The film's romanticized portrayal of family life, its idealized depiction of the Von Trapp family's escape from the Nazis, and its treatment of gender roles and sacrifice all offer fertile ground for discussion and critique. In modern times, The Sound of Music invites viewers to reflect on the ways in which it reinforces certain cultural ideals, such as the sanctity of family, the roles of women in society, and the simplicity of escapist narratives. Despite these critiques, the film's ability to inspire, uplift, and move audiences remains undeniable. Its music continues to resonate with viewers, and its portrayal of family, love, and resilience offers a timeless message of hope. Yet, as we revisit the film in light of contemporary issues, it becomes clear that The Sound of Music is as much a product of its time as it is a universal story of overcoming adversity. The film's idealization of family life, its romanticism of historical events, and its treatment of personal sacrifice are all aspects that reflect the cultural mindset of the 1960 seconds. In today's world, where complex discussions of history, trauma, and gender are at the forefront, The Sound of Music provides an opportunity to reflect on how cinema can shape and reflect the values of its time. One of the most lasting aspects of The Sound of Music is its unwavering idealism. The film tells the story of a family overcoming unimaginable obstacles, such as the loss of a mother, a strict and oppressive father, and the Nazi regime. It is a story that focuses on the power of love, music, and family unity. It paints a picture of an ideal world where music can heal emotional wounds and love can bring people together, despite their differences. While this message remains deeply uplifting for many viewers, the question arises: is this kind of idealism still appropriate in today's more complex, divided world? In many ways, The Sound of Music represents an escape from reality, a sanctuary where the troubles of the world are resolved through simple acts of love, music, and family. This idealistic portrayal of a perfect family, in which every problem is solved with a song or a kind gesture, remains a fantasy for many viewers. The power of music to unite, inspire, and heal is a central message of the film, and the lush, sweeping cinematography paired with the iconic songs reinforces this uplifting message. However, this idealism can seem out of touch with the reality that many face today, where family struggles are often more complicated and social problems more intractable. In today's world, where issues such as political polarization, economic inequality, and mental health struggles dominate the public discourse, The Sound of Music's optimistic approach to family life and conflict resolution can feel overly simplistic. The film presents an almost perfect world where the introduction of music and joy into a family can turn everything around. However, in a time when societal problems are more nuanced and systemic, the idea that a simple solution can fix deep-rooted issues might not be enough for modern audiences looking for more realistic portrayals of conflict and resolution. The film's idealism is, in many ways, its greatest strength, but it can also be its biggest weakness when viewed through the lens of current social concerns. In a world that grapples with the reality of social, political, and emotional challenges, the movie's fairy tale ending, in which the family escapes to a perfect life, may feel more distant than ever before. The enduring legacy of music as a tool for healing. One of the most profound aspects of The Sound of Music is its depiction of music as a tool for emotional healing. The film emphasizes that music can break down barriers, bring people together, and help individuals express their emotions in ways that words often cannot. This idea of music as a universal language, capable of bridging divides and creating connection, resonates deeply with audiences even today. Maria's ability to teach the Von Trapp children to sing and express themselves through music is transformative. Through music, she connects with them, breaking through their emotional walls, and helps them find joy and freedom in a time of turmoil. This portrayal of music as a force for good is incredibly powerful, especially in a world where music continues to play a critical role in many people's lives as a source of solace, expression, and joy. However, while the film's depiction of music as a redemptive force is moving, it can also be seen as a somewhat idealized perspective of what music can do. In reality, music, though powerful, cannot always solve the deeper emotional issues that individuals face. While The Sound of Music portrays music as a cure-all, the complexities of mental health, trauma, and personal struggles are rarely addressed. The film does not explore the long-term impact of the children's emotional wounds or the family's underlying issues, focusing instead on the immediate transformation that occurs through music and love. In today's world, music is still a vital source of comfort for many people, but it is increasingly understood as just one part of a more complex process of healing and self-discovery. While The Sound of Music celebrates the ability of music to change lives, it does not fully address the many layers of psychological and emotional work that go into overcoming trauma. For modern audiences, music remains a powerful tool, but it is just one of many avenues through which individuals can seek healing and transformation. The subtle racism and cultural insensitivity. Another aspect of The Sound of Music that has become more apparent in recent years is its treatment of non-Western cultures. The film is set in Austria, and its portrayal of the country's beautiful landscapes, traditions, and people offers a romanticized and picturesque vision of Europe. However, while the film provides a window into the beauty and richness of Austrian culture, it does so through a Western lens that can be viewed as culturally insensitive by today's standards. One of the most significant moments in the film is when the Von Trapp children perform for the guests at the Salzburg Festival. The scene is charming, but it is also framed in a way that emphasizes the children's otherness as they perform in a setting that expects a specific, Eurocentric aesthetic. The children's portrayal as naive and innocent, contrasted with the adult guests' sophisticated expectations, reinforces a sense of cultural superiority and reinforces a simplified, one-dimensional view of non-Western cultures. While this aspect of the film is not overtly offensive, it highlights the challenges of telling stories from a particular cultural perspective that may not be universally shared. In today's world, where cultural representation and sensitivity are paramount, The Sound of Music can be viewed as a product of its time, one that glosses over the complexities of cultural difference and reinforces a Western-centric view of the world. The question of historical authenticity and Hollywood's whitewashing. As previously mentioned, The Sound of Music takes liberties with the true story of the Von Trapp family, especially in terms of their escape from Austria and their relationship dynamics. This departure from historical accuracy is not uncommon in Hollywood films, which often embellish facts for dramatic effect. However, The Sound of Music's alteration of key aspects of the Von Trapp family's story raises larger questions about the accuracy and authenticity of Hollywood's portrayal of historical events. In particular, the film's treatment of Nazi Germany and the Von Trapp family's escape from Austria is highly romanticized. While the film does touch on the threat of the Nazi regime, it does so in a way that avoids the deep emotional and political implications of living under such oppression. The story focuses more on the Von Trapp family's personal journey and transformation than on the historical context of their experience. The film also minimizes the historical significance of the Von Trapp family's resistance to the Nazis, opting instead for a more simplistic narrative of heroism and escape. This whitewashing of history is common in many Hollywood productions, where the complexities of historical events are downplayed in favor of a more palatable, emotionally satisfying narrative. In today's climate, where historical accuracy and sensitivity to the lived experiences of marginalized groups are increasingly important, The Sound of Music's treatment of history can be seen as a missed opportunity to delve deeper into the true cost of resistance and the emotional toll of fleeing a totalitarian regime. The film's impact on modern cinema. Despite its flaws, The Sound of Music continues to be a cultural touchstone and has influenced countless films and musicals that followed. Its blend of music, family dynamics, and historical context has been replicated in many other films, with varying degrees of success. However, as modern cinema grapples with issues of representation, diversity, and historical accuracy, the Sound of Music's approach, focusing on a sci-amplified, idealized vision of history, feels increasingly out of step with the current cinematic landscape. While the film's uplifting message of hope and love continues to resonate with audiences, it is also increasingly clear that modern films are seeking to address the complexities and contradictions of history, identity, and culture in ways that The Sound of Music does not. Today's audiences are more likely to gravitate toward films that offer a more nuanced, multi-dimensional exploration of history and family, and they expect films to engage with the deeper social and political issues that shape our world. The Sound of Music will forever remain a beloved classic, cherished for its music, heartwarming story, and uplifting message. Yet, as time passes, it becomes more important to engage with the film critically, acknowledging both its contributions to cinematic history and its limitations. The film's idealism, while comforting, can also be seen as an oversimplification of complex historical and emotional realities. Its portrayal of family life, love, and sacrifice offers a nostalgic escape, but it also glosses over the deeper struggles and complexities of the human experience. By examining The Sound of Music through a modern lens, we can appreciate the film's enduring impact while also recognizing the ways in which it reflects the values and limitations of its time. In a world that is more complex and interconnected than ever before, the lessons of the film of hope, unity, and resilience are still relevant, but they must be tempered by a more critical understanding of the real-world challenges that individuals and families face. As The Sound of Music continues to inspire generations of viewers, its legacy is a testament to the power of storytelling and music to transcend time and place. Yet, in reflecting on its themes, we are reminded that true healing and transformation are far more complex than the film might suggest. The journey to understanding, both for individuals and society, requires more than just idealism and optimism. It requires an honest engagement with the complexities of our shared history and humanity. Even decades after its release, The Sound of Music remains one of the most enduring and beloved films in cinematic history. The universal themes of family, love, and the triumph of the human spirit over adversity continue to resonate with audiences around the world. The film's setting, Austria, may seem geographically specific, but its messages transcend borders, making it a global phenomenon. The characters in The Sound of Music, particularly Maria, embody qualities that people from various cultures and backgrounds can relate to: hope, resilience, the ability to overcome challenges, and the power of love to heal and unite. This universal appeal is largely due to the way the film addresses fundamental human experiences. The challenges faced by the Von Trapp family, grief, trauma, fear of the unknown, are emotions that anyone can understand, regardless of cultural background. While the film is set against the backdrop of Nazi Germany, its messages of family unity, courage, and redemption have transcended the specific historical context of World War II, making the story relevant to people from all walks of life. The film also makes use of music as a universal language. Music is a tool for expressing emotion, bringing people together, and conveying messages in ways that words alone often cannot. For audiences across the globe, the iconic songs of The Sound of Music remain timeless, providing a sense of comfort and familiarity. Songs like Do Re Mi, My Favorite Things, and Edelweiss have entered the cultural lexicon and are still widely recognized and sung around the world. In this way, the film's cultural relevance continues to grow as it is passed down through generations. The impact on musical films and cinema. In many ways, The Sound of Music set the template for how musicals would evolve in Hollywood and beyond. It successfully blended heartwarming storytelling with spectacular musical numbers, creating a formula that would be repeated in subsequent films. The film was not only a critical and commercial success, but also helped solidify the genre of the musical in mainstream cinema. Following the success of The Sound of Music, there was an influx of musicals in the 1,960 seconds and 1,970 seconds, including classics such as Mary Poppins, 1,964, The Lion King, 1,994, and Les Miserables, 2012. These films, while distinct in their own right, owe a great deal to the legacy of The Sound of Music, particularly in how they combined narrative, music, and spectacle. The ability to tell an emotionally rich story while integrating songs that enhance the narrative has been a hallmark of the genre, and The Sound of Music is often credited with being one of the film's finest examples. However, as cinema has evolved, so too has the musical genre. While The Sound of Music was groundbreaking in its TMA, modern musicals tend to reflect more diverse experiences, tackle complex social issues, and engage with the cultural and political realities of today. Movies like Hamilton, Hai Kong, Hai Mui, or La La Land, 2016, showcase how the musical genre has transformed over the years, embracing more contemporary themes and incorporating new musical styles that appeal to modern sensibilities. In this context, The Sound of Music serves as both a touchstone for future musicals and a reminder of how the genre has grown to reflect the evolving tastes and concerns of society. The changing representation of women, in addition to the questions surrounding Maria's role as a domestic figure, The Sound of Music also raises issues of representation and gender roles that are worth exploring in a modern context. The character of Maria, while groundbreaking for her free-spirited nature and willingness to challenge authority, still conforms to traditional gender expectations by the film's conclusion. Her ultimate role as a wife and mother can be seen as reinforcing the notion that a woman's primary function is to care for her family. This has become a more contested and complex issue in the years since the film's release, especially with the rise of the feminist movement and the growing call for gender equality in all areas of life. Maria's character arc is largely defined by her relationship with Captain Von Trapp and the children. While she begins as an independent, self-sufficient young woman seeking meaning outside the confines of the convent, by the end of the film, she finds fulfillment in her domestic role. While her transformation is emotionally fulfilling for many viewers, it may be seen as problematic for modern audiences who expect more complex and varied representations of women in film. Today, we see more portrayals of women who are empowered to define themselves beyond traditional roles, and their stories are no longer confined to the domestic sphere. The modern shift toward portraying women as multi-dimensional characters with diverse ambitions and motivations has altered the way we view Maria's character. This evolution in the representation of women in cinema is part of a broader movement that has reshaped Hollywood over the years. More films are now being made that showcase women in roles that challenge traditional expectations. From action heroines like Wonder Woman to complex characters like those portrayed by Viola Davis or Frances McDormand, today's cinema offers a broader spectrum of women's experiences and identities than The Sound of Music was able to provide. In the 1,960 seconds, this shift reflects the changing cultural landscape and the ongoing struggle for gender equality in both the real world and in media representation. The film's legacy in education and popular culture, while The Sound of Music continues to be enjoyed as entertainment, it also plays an important role in education. The film's portrayal of music as an expressive and transformative force has made it a popular choice for school curriculums, particularly in music and drama departments. Teachers and educators have used the film as an example of how music can be a powerful tool for bringing people together, expressing emotions, and conveying complex messages. The songs from the film are also frequently performed in school productions and community theaters, further cementing the film's role in educating and inspiring future generations. Additionally, The film's cultural eye impact extends far beyond its music and themes. It has been parodied, referenced, and paid homage to countless times in popular culture. From being spoofed in movies and TV shows to being referenced in music videos, The Sound of Music has become a part of the collective consciousness, its iconic moments and lines woven into the fabric of popular culture. Whether through references to The Hills Are Alive or the beloved Do-Re-Mi sequence, the film continues to inspire creative works across a variety of mediums. In fact, the film's legacy is so ingrained in the culture that even people who may never have watched The Sound of Music are familiar with its songs and themes. This enduring recognition speaks to the film's status as an indelible part of cinematic history, a work that has shaped the way we think about musicals, family, and the power of art to transcend boundaries. The film in the context of global cinema. The eye impact of The Sound of Music extends beyond Hollywood and American cinema. Its global success, both critically and commercially, set a precedent for the international reach of Hollywood films. The film's widespread popularity in countries like Japan, Australia, and the UK, among others, exemplifies how American films have shaped global cinema and culture. The film's messages of family, love, and hope resonate across borders, making it a universal experience for many audiences. Moreover, the success of The Sound of Music in non-English-speaking countries helped open the door for more American musicals to be appreciated worldwide. The film demonstrated that musicals could be enjoyed by people of different cultures, regardless of language barriers. As such, it helped pave the way for musicals from other countries to gain international recognition, including productions like Les Misérables from France and The Lion King from Broadway, which found global audiences. In the context of global cinema, The Sound of Music serves as a reminder of the power of film to bring people together, even when cultural differences are vast. Its global appeal speaks to the universality of the themes it explores, offering hope, joy, and human connection, no matter where one might be from. Conclusion: a multifaceted legacy. In the years since its release, The Sound of Music has become much more than just a movie. It has become a symbol of joy, hope, and resilience. While its idealistic portrayal of family life and history can be critiqued from modern perspectives, its messages of love, the transformative power of music, and the high importance of family continue to resonate with audiences worldwide. The film's impact on musical cinema, its portrayal of historical events, and its representation of women in the 1,960 seconds all provide ample ground for discussion, and its legacy is one that will continue to evolve as society changes. The timeless appeal of The Sound of Music is undeniable, and while modern audiences may view it through a more critical lens, its place in cinematic history is secure. It is a film that invites viewers to reflect on the ways in which cinema can shape our understanding of history, identity, and culture, all while providing an enduring sense of joy and optimism. One of the most common critiques of The Sound of Music lies in its treatment of historical accuracy. While the film is loosely based on the true story of the Von Trapp family, much of the narrative is fictionalized for dramatic effect. The film portrays the Von Trapp family's escape from Austria as a dramatic, emotional, and idealized moment in cinematic history. In truth, their escape was far less theatrical. In reality, the Von Trapp family did indeed flee Austria to avoid Nazi control, but it wasn't as dramatic or adventurous as it was depicted in the film. The family did not scale the Alps to escape. They took a train to Italy before heading to London, where they later made their way to the United States. This change in the story was made to create a sense of escape and adventure, transforming what was a rather quiet departure into an exhilarating moment for the film's audience. This departure from historical facts is not uncommon in Hollywood, where directors often adjust the truth to create a more exciting or emotional story. However, the impact of this fictionalization raises the question: does it diminish the importance of the actual story? The Von Trapp's real-life story is remarkable on its own, without needing to be embellished. Their courage and determination to escape the Nazis and create a new life for themselves in the United States is a powerful narrative that could have made for an equally compelling film. However, the choice to alter their story likely made the film more marketable and emotionally resonant, focusing on themes of hope, family, and resilience. By changing these historical facts, The Sound of Music distorts the true narrative of resistance during World War II. While the film may be well-intentioned in portraying the heroism of the Von Trapp family, its romanticized take on history can detract from the real struggles that people faced under Nazi rule. The movie fails to convey the harsh reality that resistance against the Nazis often led to devastating consequences for those who chose to fight back. The portrayal of the Von Trapp family as escaping into a utopian future disregards the personal sacrifices and hardships that many families endured in their struggle for freedom. The legacy of the Von Trapp family. Beyond the film, the Von Trapp family's true legacy extends far beyond The Sound of Music and Hollywood's interpretation of their story. After settling in the United States, the family continued their musical pursuits, performing across the country under the name the Trapp Family Singers. They became well known for their concerts and recordings, and their music played an important role in promoting the idea of cultural exchange and the joy of music as a universal language. In contrast to the film's portrayal, the real Von Trapp family did not maintain a strict, authoritarian structure, but were instead deeply invested in their music and their shared experiences as a family. While Captain Von Trapp is portrayed as a cold, distant figure in the film, the real man was reportedly warm and loving toward his children. The family's music, which in the film is depicted as a means of healing, was, in reality, a reflection of their deep bond and shared passion for art. The family's real-life devotion to music as a way to connect with others remains one of their most enduring legacies. Beyond their musical achievements, the Von Trapp family has also been instrumental in fostering charitable causes. In the years after their escape, they supported various humanitarian efforts and continued to work on projects that promoted education and cultural exchange. They served as ambassadors for the power of resilience and perseverance in the face of adversity, and their story has inspired countless people around the world. While The Sound of Music continues to celebrate the family's music and unity, the real story of their journey speaks to something even more profound: the power of hope and the importance of staying true to one's values, even in the face of overwhelming opposition. The film's reception in different cultural contexts. Though The Sound of Music remains one of the most successful films in Hollywood history, its reception has varied across different cultural contexts. In the United States and Europe, the film has been universally loved for its uplifting message, musical numbers, and its portrayal of a family overcoming adversity. However, in other parts of the world, where the historical context and portrayal of the Nazi regime are less familiar, the film may not have the same resonance. In countries like Germany and Austria, where the memory of the Nazi occupation and World War II are deeply ingrained in the national consciousness, The Sound of Music has been subject to critical scrutiny. Some Austrians, for example, see the film's portrayal of the country as overly idealized, glossing over the complexities of Austria's role in the Nazi regime. Austria, despite being the birthplace of the Von Trapp family, was deeply involved in the Nazi occupation, and the film's portrayal of the Von Trapp family as victims fleeing from an entirely foreign threat does not take into account the fact that many Austrians supported Hitler's regime either willingly or out of fear. The portrayal of the Von Trapp family's escape as a heroic and romanticized moment is seen by some as a form of historical revisionism, amplifying the moral complexities of the time. For viewers in Austria and Germany, where historical trauma and the legacy of World War II remain significant, the film may feel less like an uplifting story and more like a convenient version of history that avoids uncomfortable truths. In contrast, in other parts of the world, especially in regions where the history of Nazi occupation is less directly experienced, the film is seen more through the lens of entertainment, family values, and musical enjoyment. The film's depiction of resilience and hope in the face of adversity speaks to universal themes that can be appreciated regardless of cultural context. The songs, in particular, have become international anthems, sung by audiences from all over the world and appreciated for their ability to convey both emotional depth and joy. The Sound of Music as an American cultural export. As a piece of American cinema, The Sound of Music also functions as a cultural export, promoting ideals of family, innocence, and the American dream. The movie presents an image of a perfect, harmonious family overcoming external adversity through love and unity. These values are central to the American cultural narrative, and The Sound of Music helped to solidify the idea of America as a place where people could escape hardship and create a new, fulfilling life. The film's success outside the U.S. has helped to reinforce these ideas and establish them as universally appealing concepts. The portrayal of America as a place of refuge, where one can rebuild a life free from oppression, resonates with global audiences who long for freedom and opportunity. The film has played a role in shaping how people around the world view America as a land of hope and possibility, even in the face of overwhelming challenges. However, the film's idealized version of America as a utopian society has also been criticized, particularly in light of the country's complicated history with issues like race, inequality, and foreign intervention. The Sound of Music does not address these issues, but instead reinforces a simplistic, optimistic view of American life. For many viewers, particularly those who have experienced the darker side of American history, the film's portrayal of American values can feel overly simplistic and disconnected from the reality of American society. Conclusion: a complex and ever-relevant film, The Sound of Music remains a classic because it encapsulates timeless themes of love, family, and the power of music to heal. Its impact on cinema, culture, and popular music is undeniable, and its legacy continues to endure across generations. Yet, as we reflect on the film through a modern lens, it becomes clear that the film's portrayal of history, family dynamics, and gender roles is not without its complications. While The Sound of Music may continue to inspire with its messages of hope and resilience, it also invites a deeper conversation about the complexities of history, representation, and cultural idealism. The film's ongoing cultural relevance speaks to the power of storytelling in shaping our collective understanding of history and humanity. Through its music and its portrayal of human triumph, The Sound of Music reminds us that no matter how idealized or romanticized the story may be, the core of the film, the values of love, unity, and perseverance, remains as powerful and necessary today as it was when the film first captivated audiences over 50 years ago. Its ability to bring people together through its music, its story, and its message will continue to ensure its place in the cultural canon for years to come.